The transport shuttle landed on Station Prometheus with a loud hiss. The doors opened and bright white light poured inside. One by one, the new cadets stepped out onto the metal platform. They came from many different worlds. Some were tall with green scales covering their bodies. Some had 4 arms and gray skin. Some looked like giant insects with sharp claws. And then there was the human dot. Her name was Emily Park. She was small. She stood only 5 feet and 4 inches tall. Her black hair was tied back in a tight bun. Her brown eyes were calm and showed no emotion. She carried a single bag over her shoulder and walked with quiet steps that made almost no sound on the metal floor. The Galactic Military Academy was the most famous military school in all of known space. It trained soldiers from every species in the Allied coalition. Only the best were accepted. Only the strongest survived the training. For hundreds of years, the Academy had produced the finest warriors in the galaxy. Humans had only been allowed to join 3 years ago. Earth had recently become part of the coalition, and humans were still new to the galactic community. Most aliens did not think much of them. Humans were small. Humans were soft. Humans did not have claws or scales or natural weapons. To most species, humans seemed weak and fragile. Emily knew what they thought of her. She could see it in their eyes as she walked past them. A group of draconids, large reptile-like aliens with green scales and yellow eyes, watched her with amusement. Their leader was named Gorth. He stood 7 feet tall, and his muscles rippled under his scales. His 2 friends, Threx and Vorn, stood beside him. They were slightly smaller, but just as mean. "Look at that," Gorth said loudly. "They actually let one of those things in here." Threx made a clicking sound with his tongue. "I heard humans break easily, like thin glass. Maybe we should test that," Vorn added with a cruel smile. Emily heard every word. She kept walking. She did not look at them. She did not respond. Her face remained calm and empty, like still water. An officer at the entrance handed her a tablet with her room assignment and training schedule. She took it, said thank you quietly, and walked toward the living quarters. Behind her, the draconids laughed. The academy was huge. Long hallways stretched in every direction. The walls were made of gray metal, and the floors were polished so clean that Emily could see her reflection. Other cadets walked past her. Some were alone like her. Others moved in groups, talking and laughing with members of their own species. Emily found her room on the 4th level. It was small, just a bed, a desk, a closet, and a tiny bathroom. But it was clean and private. She set her bag on the bed and sat down. For a moment, she just breathed, in and out, slow and steady. She had trained her whole life for this moment. Growing up on Earth had not been easy. She came from a city called Detroit. 20 years ago, the world had gone through something called the collapse. Governments fell. Resources became scarce. Cities became dangerous places where only the strong survived. Emily had been 8 years old when the collapse happened. Her parents had died in the first year. She had lived on the streets with other orphans. She had learned to fight before she learned to read. She had learned to stay quiet, to watch, to wait. She had learned that the loudest people were often the weakest. And that true strength did not need to announce itself. When the coalition ships came to Earth and offered membership in the galactic community, Emily saw her chance. She studied hard. She trained harder. She passed every test they gave her. And now she was here, at the most elite military academy in the galaxy. But she knew her journey was just beginning. The first week of training was brutal. Every day started at 5 in the morning with physical exercises. The cadets ran, climbed, lifted, and fought until their bodies screamed for rest. Then came the classroom lessons: military history, alien languages, spaceship operations, combat tactics. Then more physical training until late at night. Emily kept up with everything. She was not the fastest or the strongest, but she never quit. When the Draconids finished a run and she was still going, they laughed at her. When she finally crossed the finish line, minutes behind everyone else, she simply caught her breath and prepared for the next exercise. "The human is stubborn," one of the instructors noted. He was a Valkyrie, a gray-skinned alien with 4 arms and small black eyes. "Stubborn like a rock. Rocks do not make good soldiers," another instructor replied. "They just sit there and get crushed." But Emily was not just sitting there. She was watching. She was learning. She noticed how Gorath relied on his size and strength. He was powerful, but he was slow and predictable. She noticed how Threx always attacked from the right side because his left arm was slightly weaker. She noticed how Vorn became angry easily and made mistakes when he was upset. She stored all of this information in her mind, like a computer storing data. In the mess hall, she sat alone in the corner. She ate her food quietly and watched the other cadets. The different species tended to group together. The Draconids sat with other Draconids. The Valkyrie sat with other Valkyrie. The Mantari, the insect-like aliens, sat with other Man-Tar. No one sat with Emily. She did not mind. She had been alone for most of her life. She knew how to be comfortable in silence. She knew how to find strength in solitude. Sometimes, other cadets would look at her with curiosity. A young Valkyrie female named Kira once approached her table. "Is it true that humans come from a death world?" Kira asked. Emily looked up. "What do you mean?" "I heard that Earth is classified as a dangerous planet. Extreme weather. Predators everywhere. Diseases that can kill in days." Emily thought about this. "I suppose that is true. But we do not think of it that way. It is just home." Kira seemed fascinated. "And you survived there?" "Without scales or claws or armor." "We survived," Emily said simply. "We always survive." Kira nodded slowly and walked away. Emily returned to her food. Across the mess hall, Gorath was watching her. His yellow eyes were cold and calculating. He did not like the human. He did not like how she refused to break. He did not like how she kept going no matter what they threw at her. "That one is trouble," Gorath muttered to his friends. "We need to teach her a lesson. Show her where she belongs." Threx and Vorm grinned. They were already thinking of ways to break the small human girl. They had no idea what they were about to unleash. 2 weeks passed at the academy. Emily continued to train hard and study harder. She woke up before everyone else and went to sleep after everyone else. She ran extra laps when no one was watching. She practiced combat moves alone in her room until her muscles burned. The other cadets started to notice her. Not because she was impressive, but because she would not go away. Most humans who came to the academy quit within the first month. The training was too hard. The aliens were too hostile. The loneliness was too heavy. But Emily stayed. This made Gorath angry. He had expected the human to break quickly. He had expected her to cry, to beg, to run back to her primitive planet. Instead, she just kept going, like a machine. Like she did not feel pain or fear or exhaustion. "She thinks she is better than us," Gorath told his friends one night. "She thinks she can just ignore us and we will go away." "What should we do?" Threx asked. Gorath smiled. His sharp teeth gleamed in the light. "We remind her what she is. A weak little mammal who does not belong here." The next day, Emily sat in her usual spot in the mess hall. It was the corner table, far from everyone else. She had her tray of food in front of her, a small portion of protein paste and some vegetables that had been specially made for human biology. It did not taste good, but it gave her the energy she needed. She was about to take her first bite when a shadow fell over her table. Emily looked up. Goreth stood there with Threx and Vorm behind him. The mess hall had gone quiet. Every cadet was watching. Some looked curious. Some looked uncomfortable. But none of them moved to help. "You are in my seat," Goreth said. Emily glanced at the empty chairs around her, then back at Goreth. "The seating chart says this table is open." A gasp rippled through the crowd. The human had talked back. No one talked back to Goreth. Goreth's eyes narrowed. "Did you just speak to me, little creature? You asked me a question. I answered it." Threx stepped forward. "Show some respect, Mama. Do you know who you are talking to? Gorath's family has produced warriors for 500 generations. What has your family produced? Nothing. Your species has only been in space for a few years. You are infants. You are insects." Emily said nothing. She picked up her fork and was about to eat when Gorath moved. His large clawed hand swept across the table and knocked her tray to the floor. Food scattered everywhere. The protein paste splattered across the metal floor. The vegetables rolled under nearby tables. The tray clattered loudly in the silent room. Several cadets looked away. A few smiled. Most just watched with empty eyes, unwilling to get involved. Emily looked at the mess on the floor. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes revealed nothing. She simply stared at the food that had been her only meal for the day. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She got down on her knees and started picking up the food, piece by piece. She gathered the scattered vegetables. She scooped the protein paste back onto her tray with her fingers. She worked calmly and methodically, like she was performing a simple task that did not bother her at all. The Draconids burst into laughter. "Look at her!" Vorn howled. "She is eating from the floor like an animal." "This is perfect," Threx added. "This is exactly where humans belong. On their knees, picking up scraps." Gorath watched with satisfaction. This was what he wanted. He wanted to humiliate her. He wanted to break her spirit. He wanted everyone to see that humans were nothing. But something was wrong. Emily was not crying. She was not shaking. She was not showing any signs of shame or embarrassment. She picked up her food with steady hands and a calm face. When she finished, she stood up, walked back to her seat, and sat down. Then she started eating. The laughter stopped. Gorath stared at her. She was eating the food that had been on the floor. She was eating it like nothing had happened. She was eating it while looking directly at him. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Emily chewed slowly. She swallowed. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "I am eating my meal. That food was on the floor. It is dirty. It is garbage now. It is still food. I will not waste it." Something in her voice made Gorath's scales prickle. There was no anger in her words. No fear. No emotion at all. Just a simple statement of fact. "Where I come from," Emily continued, "we do not waste food. We do not throw away what we need to survive. Because tomorrow, there might not be any more." The mess hall was completely silent. Even the cadets who had been smiling before now looked uncertain. There was something in the human's eyes, something hard and cold and ancient. Something that spoke of hunger and desperation and survival. Gorath leaned down close to her face. His breath was hot and smelled like meat. "You think you are tough, little human? You think this makes you strong?" Emily did not lean away. She met his gaze without blinking. "I think I am hungry. And you are between me and my food." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Gorath smiled. But it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found interesting prey. "Tomorrow," he said softly. "Training Pit 3. After lights out. Just you and me. We will see how tough you really are. And if I say no, then every day I will knock your food to the floor. Every day, I will make your life here a living nightmare. Every day, until you quit and run home like the pathetic creature you are." Emily was quiet for a moment. She looked at her half-eaten meal. She looked at the other cadets who refused to meet her eyes. She looked at Threx and Vorn, who were grinning with excitement. Then she looked back at Garth. "Okay," she said. Garth blinked. He had expected her to argue, to make excuses, to try to find a way out. But she had simply agreed. "Okay? That is all you have to say? You said Training Pit 3. Tomorrow, after lights out." Emily picked up her fork. "I will be there." She returned to eating. Garth stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. This was not how it was supposed to go. The human should have been scared. She should have been begging for mercy. Instead, she was eating floor food like she had just agreed to a casual meeting. "Let us go," he finally said to his friends. "We will finish this tomorrow." As they walked away, Threx looked back at the human with confusion in his eyes. Why is she not afraid? Garth did not answer. But deep inside, in a place he would never admit existed, he felt something he had not felt in years: doubt. Training Pit 3 was located in the basement of the academy. It was a large circular room with high walls and a floor made of hard rubber. The ceiling lights were dim, casting long shadows across the space. This was where cadets settled their differences when the instructors were not watching. Everyone knew about the pit. The instructors knew too, but they pretended not to. Fighting was part of military life. Better to let the cadets work out their problems here than on a real battlefield. By the time Emily arrived, a crowd had already gathered. Word had spread quickly. The human was going to fight Garth. No one wanted to miss this. The cadets sat on raised platforms around the pit, looking down at the fighting area. There were Valkyrie with their forearms crossed. There were Mentari clicking their claws with excitement. There were other Draconids who had come to watch their champion crush the tiny human. Emily walked through the entrance and stepped into the pit. She had removed her uniform jacket and wore only the standard gray tank top. For the first time, the other cadets could see her arms clearly. They were covered in scars. Thin white lines crossed her skin like a map of old wounds. Some were short. Some were long. Some looked like they had been made by blades. Others looked like burns or animal scratches. A Mentari cadet leaned toward his friend. What happened to her? No one had an answer. Garth stood in the center of the pit, waiting. He had removed his armor plates, showing his thick green scales. His yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. He was 7 feet tall and weighed over 300 pounds. His claws could tear through metal. "You actually came," he said, surprised. "I thought you would run." Emily walked to the center of the pit until she stood about 10 feet away from him. She did not look scared. She did not look worried. She just looked ready. "No weapons," Garth announced to the crowd. "No outside help. Just her and me until one of us cannot fight anymore." He turned back to Emily. "Unless you want to apologize now. Get on your knees and beg for mercy. I might let you leave with only a few broken bones." Emily raised her hands, but she did not make fists. Her hands stayed open, relaxed, with her fingers slightly curved. Her stance was low and balanced. Her weight shifted to the balls of her feet. "I do not beg," she said quietly. Garth roared and charged. He was fast for his size. His massive body crossed the distance in less than 2 seconds. His clawed hand swept toward Emily's head with enough force to crush her skull. But Emily was not there. She had moved before his hand reached her. She dropped low and slid to his right side, her body flowing like water around his attack. Her palm shot up and struck his throat, not hard enough to kill, but exactly hard enough to close his airway for a few seconds. Garth stumbled, choking and gasping for breath. His eyes went wide with shock. No one had ever hit him like that before. No one had ever been fast enough before he could recover. Emily's foot swept his legs out from under him. All 7 feet and 300 pounds of Draconid muscle crashed to the floor with a thunderous boom. The crowd went silent. Emily stepped back and waited. Her breathing was slow and steady. She had not even broken a sweat. Threx and Vorn looked at each other. This was not supposed to happen. Their friend was supposed to destroy the human with one blow. Instead, he was on the ground, struggling to breathe. "Help him!" Someone shouted. Threx and Vorn jumped into the pit and ran toward Emily. They were going to attack her together. Rules or no rules. They were going to make her pay for humiliating their leader. Threx reached her first. He swung his right arm, his stronger arm, in a wide arc aimed at her head. Emily caught his wrist with both hands, twisted her body, and used his own momentum against him. There was a wet popping sound as his shoulder dislocated from its socket. Threx screamed and fell to his knees. Clutching his arm, Vorn tried to grab Emily from behind. She dropped straight down like a stone, ducked under his arms, and drove her elbow into the side of his knee. The joint bent in a direction it was not supposed to bend. Vorn collapsed, howling in pain. The whole fight had taken 11 seconds. Emily stood in the center of the pit, surrounded by 3 groaning Draconids. She was barely breathing hard. Her face was calm. Her eyes were cold. The crowd was frozen in shock. No one spoke. No one moved. They had just watched a tiny, soft, clawless human defeat 3 Draconid warriors without taking a single hit. Emily looked up at the watching cadets. Her eyes moved slowly across their faces. She saw fear. She saw confusion. She saw the beginning of something that might have been respect. "On my world," she said, her voice carrying through the silent room, "we do not fight because we are strong. We fight because we learn to survive things that should have killed us." She looked down at Garth, who was still gasping on the floor. "You are big. You are powerful. You have claws and scales and muscles, but you have never been hungry. You have never been hunted. You have never had to kill just to see another sunrise." She walked slowly around the fallen Draconids, her footsteps soft on the rubber floor. Humans do not have armor. We do not have natural weapons. So we learn to watch. We learn to wait. We learn to find the weakness in everything that wanted to eat us. And then we learn to strike that weakness with everything we had. She stopped and looked at the crowd again. "Yesterday, you threw my food on the floor. You thought it would break me. You thought I would cry or beg or run away." Her voice grew harder. "I picked up that food because where I come from, you do not waste anything. You eat what you have. You use what you can find. And you never, ever let anyone take what is yours." She walked toward the exit. The crowd parted before her like water around a stone. "I did not come here to make enemies. I did not come here to fight. I came here to learn, to train, to prove that humans deserve a place in the galaxy." She stopped at the door and looked back one last time. "But if anyone else wants to throw my food on the floor, they are welcome to try." She walked out into the darkness of the hallway. Behind her, the pit remained silent for a long, long time. Finally, Kira, the young Velkari, who had asked Emily about Earth, spoke quietly to the cadet beside her. "I think," she said slowly, "that we have been thinking about humans all wrong." The other cadet nodded. Still staring at the door, where Emily had disappeared in the center of the pit, Garth finally managed to sit up. His throat was bruised, and his pride was shattered. He looked at his 2 friends, one with a dislocated shoulder, one with a damaged knee, and felt something he had never felt before in his life: fear of a human. The next morning, Emily woke up at her usual time. She showered, dressed, and went to the training grounds like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. When she walked through the hallways, other cadets stepped aside to let her pass. When she entered the mess hall, conversation stopped. When she sat down at her corner table, no one came to bother her. The Draconids were nowhere to be seen. She later learned that Gareth, Threx, and Vorn had been taken to the medical bay during the night. Threx needed surgery on his shoulder. Vorn would need weeks to heal his knee. Gareth had no physical injuries, but something in his eyes had broken dot by midday. Everyone at the academy knew what had happened in Training Pit 3. The security cameras had recorded everything. Cadets passed the video around like a treasure, watching it again and again in amazement. 11 seconds. That was all it had taken for a human to defeat 3 Draconid warriors. The instructors watched the video too. They did not say anything officially, but Emily noticed them looking at her differently during training. There was a new kind of attention in their eyes. Not respect exactly, but something close to it. In the afternoon, Emily was called to the office of Admiral Vex. Admiral Vex was the commandant of the Academy, the highest-ranking officer on Station Prometheus. She was a Valkyrie, old and battle-scarred, with gray skin that had turned almost white with age. 2 of her 4 arms had been replaced with mechanical prosthetics after an old war injury. Her small black eyes had seen more combat than most soldiers would see in 10 lifetimes. Emily stood at attention in front of the Admiral's desk. The office was large but simple. There were no decorations on the walls, except for a single flag of the Allied Coalition. The desk was clean and organized. Everything had its place. "Sit down, Cadet Park," the Admiral said. Emily sat in the chair across from the desk. She kept her back straight and her hands on her knees. The Admiral studied her for a long moment. Her black eyes moved slowly across Emily's face, searching for something. "I watched the recording from Training Pit 3, the Admiral finally said. "I have watched many fights in my life. Thousands of them. I have never seen anything quite like what you did last night." Emily did not respond. She was not sure if she was in trouble or not. "Gorath's family is very powerful," the Admiral continued. "They have produced generals and admirals for 500 generations. They are demanding that you be expelled from the Academy for attacking their son." Emily's heart sank, but her face remained calm. "I understand. I denied their request." Emily blinked. "Ma'am?" The Admiral leaned back in her chair. "The recording clearly shows that Gareth initiated the confrontation. He challenged you to a fight. You accepted. When the fight began, he attacked first. Everything you did was in self-defense." She paused. "Furthermore, you fought against 3 opponents who outweighed you by a combined factor of 12. You used only your hands and feet. You caused no permanent damage. Threx's shoulder will heal, Vorn's knee will recover, and Gareth has only bruises. If anything, this demonstrates remarkable restraint." "I did not want to hurt them more than necessary," Emily said quietly. "I know. That is what impressed me most." The Admiral leaned forward. "Tell me about your training. The way you fight, it is not standard Earth military technique, is it?" Emily hesitated. She did not like talking about her past. But the Admiral had defended her, and she deserved an honest answer. "No, ma'am. I learned to fight before I joined the military. I grew up in a place called Detroit in North America. I am familiar with the name. It is one of the cities that suffered most during Earth's collapse." Emily nodded. "When the collapse happened, I was 8 years old. My parents died in the first year. After that, I lived on the streets with other children who had no families. There were gangs fighting for territory. There were people who would hurt you for food or water or just because they could." She paused, remembering things she preferred to forget. "I learned to fight because I had no choice. If you could not defend yourself, you did not survive. Some of the other children taught me. Some things I learned from watching. Some things I learned from nearly dying. The Admiral nodded slowly. She had seen the scars on Emily's arms in the video. Now she understood where they came from. The Coalition's intelligence reports described Earth collapse, the Admiral said. But I do not think any of us truly understood what it meant. We read about the environmental disasters, the economic failures, the breakdown of governments. We saw it as a period of difficulty that humans eventually overcame. She looked at Emily with new understanding in her eyes. But it was more than that, was it not? It was a crucible. A fire that burned away everything weak and left only the strongest behind. We do not think of it that way, Emily said. We just think of it as what we had to do to survive. Every morning we woke up and tried to live one more day. That was all. That is exactly what makes your species remarkable. The Admiral stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly into the black void of space. Most species in the Coalition had easy paths to civilization. They evolved on peaceful worlds with stable climates and abundant resources. They never faced true hardship. She turned back to Emily. Humans are different. Your world tried to kill you in 1,000 ways. It threw ice ages and plagues and famines at you. It filled your lands with predators that should have wiped you out. And when you finally built civilization, it collapsed, and you had to survive all over again. Emily did not know what to say. She had never thought about her history this way. The other cadets are afraid of you now, the Admiral continued. Some of them are also impressed. But most of them do not understand what they saw in that pit. They think you won because you learned some special fighting technique or because you got lucky. What do you think, ma'am? The Admiral sat back down at her desk. I think they saw a human. A real human. Fighting the way humans have fought for thousands of years. Not with strength or size or natural weapons, but with intelligence, speed, and the absolute refusal to die. She pulled out a file and placed it on the desk. You have two choices now. Cadet Park, you can continue your training quietly, graduate with your class, and accept whatever assignment the Coalition gives you. That is the safe path, the easy path, or you can apply for the Advanced Combat Program. It is an elite training course for the most promising warriors in the Academy. The work is harder. The danger is greater. But those who complete it go on to join the Rapid Response Division, the Coalition's most decorated unit. Emily looked at the file. Her heart was beating faster now. Humans have never been accepted into the Advanced Combat Program, the Admiral said. Most species do not believe your kind has what it takes. But after what I saw last night, I am willing to sponsor your application. Emily reached for the file, then stopped. Why? She asked. Why would you do this for me? The Admiral smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was real. Because the galaxy is changing, Cadet Park. There are threats coming that we cannot face alone. We need warriors who can fight, adapt, and survive against impossible odds. We need humans. She pushed the file toward Emily. The question is, are you willing to show the galaxy what your species can really do? Emily took the file. She did not open it. She already knew her answer. Yes, ma'am, she said. I am. 6 months later, Emily Park stood in the graduation hall of the Galactic Military Academy. She wore the black and silver uniform of a Coalition officer. On her chest, a small golden pin marked her as a graduate of the Advanced Combat Program. Only 12 cadets had received that pin this year. She was the only human among them. The graduation ceremony was grand and formal. Thousands of cadets stood in perfect rows while admirals and generals gave long speeches about duty, honor, and sacrifice. Emily listened politely, but her mind kept drifting to other things she thought about the last 6 months. The advanced combat program had been the hardest thing she had ever done. Harder than surviving the collapse. Harder than living on the streets of Detroit. Every day had pushed her to her absolute limit. Every night, she had collapsed into bed so exhausted that she could barely breathe. But she had made it. More than that, she had excelled. Her instructors had been surprised at first, then impressed, then amazed. By the end of the program, they were using recordings of her training sessions to teach other cadets. The human who was supposed to be weak and fragile had become one of the best fighters the Academy had ever seen. The other cadets in the program had changed too. At first, they had looked at her with doubt and suspicion. They had expected her to fail. They had expected her to slow them down. But week after week, she proved them wrong. She kept up with aliens twice her size. She solved problems that stumped species with supposedly superior intelligence. She never gave up, never complained, never asked for special treatment. By the end, they had accepted her. Not just as a teammate, but as an equal. After the ceremony, Emily walked to her quarters to pack her things. She had received her assignment, the Rapid Response Division, just as Admiral Vex had promised. She would be shipping out tomorrow to join her new unit on a warship called the Resolute. As she was packing, she heard a knock at her door. She opened it to find a group of first-year cadets standing nervously in the hallway. There were 5 of them, a young Valkyrie, 2 Montari, a small Draconid, and another human. They were wearing the plain gray uniforms of new students. Emily recognized the Draconid immediately. His scales were lighter than Gorath's, and his eyes were softer. But the family resemblance was clear. "Officer Park," the young Draconid said, his voice shaking slightly. "My name is Corin. I am Gorath's younger brother." Emily waited. Her face showed no emotion. "I know what my brother did to you," Corin continued. "What he tried to do. I want you to know that I do not agree with him. I never did. He thought that size and strength were everything. He thought that other species were inferior just because they were different. He looked down at his feet. He was wrong. I know that now. Everyone knows that now." Emily studied the young Draconid. He seemed sincere. He seemed genuinely ashamed of what his brother had done. "Why are you here, Corin?" she asked. He looked up again. "We came to ask you a question. All of us," he gestured to the other first-year cadets. "We have heard stories about you, about what you did in the pit, about how you completed the advanced combat program, about how you never gave up no matter what anyone said or did." The young human cadet stepped forward. She was small, even smaller than Emily had been, with short brown hair and nervous brown eyes. "My name is Lucy," she said. "I am only the 4th human to be accepted to the Academy. Everyone keeps telling me that humans do not belong here, that we are too weak, too soft, too fragile. They keep trying to make me quit." Her voice cracked slightly. "How do you do it? How do you stay so calm when everyone underestimates you? How do you keep going when everything feels impossible?" Emily looked at the group of young cadets. They were all looking at her with hope in their eyes. They were looking at her like she had answers to questions. They did not know how to ask. She stepped back and opened her door wider. "Come in," she said. "All of you." The cadets filed into her small room. There was not enough space for everyone to sit, so they stood in a loose circle around Emily. Emily thought for a moment about what to say. She had never been good with words. She had always been better with actions. But these young people needed something to hold on to. They needed wisdom she was not sure she had. Finally, she spoke. "On Earth, there is an old saying. It goes, 'The nail that sticks up gets hammered down.' Some people think this means you should stay small. Stay invisible. Do not attract attention. Do not make yourself a target." She paused. "But there is another way to understand it. If you are going to stick up, if you are going to be different, If you are going to stand out from everyone else, then you better be strong enough that the hammer breaks before you do." The cadets listened in silence. When Garth threw my food on the floor, he wanted to break me. He wanted to show everyone that I was weak and did not belong here. He wanted to write my story for me, the story of a pathetic little human who could not handle the real world. Emily's voice grew stronger, but I did not let him write my story. I picked up my food because that was what I needed to do. Not for him, not for the people watching, but for me. Where I come from, you do not waste what you have. You do not throw away the things that keep you alive. And you never ever let someone else decide your worth. She looked at Lucy, the young human. You asked how I stayed calm. The truth is, I was not calm. Inside, I was angry and hurt and scared. But I did not show it because showing it would have given them power over me. When someone tries to break you, the best thing you can do is refuse to break. She looked at Corin, the young Draconid. Your brother was strong in many ways, but he was weak in the ways that matter most. He thought power came from making others feel small. Real power comes from making yourself bigger, not by pushing others down, but by lifting yourself up. She looked at all of them. You are going to face hard times at this academy. People will doubt you. People will try to hurt you. People will tell you that you do not belong. But remember this, they can only stop you if you let them. She walked to her bag and pulled out something small. It was a piece of cloth, faded and worn, with a simple pattern stitched into it. My mother made this for me before she died, Emily said. She told me that whenever I felt lost or scared, I should hold it and remember that I come from people who survived. People who refused to give up no matter what the world threw at them. She held it up so they could see. You come from people like that too. Every species in this room has ancestors who faced impossible challenges and survived. That strength is inside you. You just have to find it. She put the cloth back in her bag. Now go. Train hard. Study harder. Look out for each other. And if anyone throws your food on the floor, she smiled a rare, genuine smile that transformed her face. Pick it up. Stay silent. And when the time comes, show them exactly what you are made of. The cadets filed out of her room one by one. Each of them looked different somehow. Taller, stronger, more confident. Lucy was the last to leave. She stopped at the door and looked back. Officer Park? What happened to Gorth? After the fight? Emily's smile faded slightly. He quit the academy a month after our fight. I heard he went back to his homeworld. I do not know what he is doing now. Do you hate him? Emily thought about this question for a long moment. No, she finally said. I pity him. He spent his whole life believing that strength was about hurting others. He never learned that true strength is about surviving what the world throws at you and coming out the other side as a better person. Lucy nodded slowly. Thank you, Officer Park, for everything. Call me Emily, she said. And remember what I told you. Do not let anyone write your story. Lucy left and Emily was alone. She finished packing her bag and looked around the small room one last time. She had spent 2 years here. She had arrived as a scared, uncertain girl from a broken world. She was leaving as something else entirely. Tomorrow, she would join the Rapid Response Division. She would face new challenges, new enemies, new battles. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, full of threats that most species could not even imagine. But Emily Park was not afraid that she was human. And humans always survived.